Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session today on how to level up your tabletop exercises. My name is Alyssa Pugh. I am the GRC content manager for Tandem. I've been with the company for just over 12 years now, and I am so excited to be here today to share some practical tips on how to host an outstanding tabletop exercise. So let's get into it. 5 tips for your tabletops. What are some real tangible things you can do to improve engagement and results? The first tip I have for you today is design a compelling scenario. And I use the word design very purposefully. There are 3 things that you'll need. The first thing that you're going to need is a threat. And the reason that you need a threat is because a threat is what makes your tabletop relevant. A threat ties the scenario directly to your organization's actual risks. You are not inventing something random. You are anchoring it to a real plausible thing that can happen. This is why most people start with a threat when they're creating a scenario. Think a fire, a phishing email, a ransomware attack, a zombie apocalypse, if that's more your flavor. Now, the mistake I've seen people make is that they stop there. Just like in the game of Clue, you don't win by saying it was Colonel Mustard. You have to determine it was Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the candlestick. So the second part of a strong scenario is a current event. It may sound simple, but it really adds a sense of immediacy and a sense of credibility to your tabletop exercise because you're talking about something that could happen to you. You are putting yourself in someone else's shoes. The last thing that I would encourage you to do is pick a specific business process for your scenario. This is what makes your scenario relatable. So instead of saying we had a fire, say the marketing team was trying out a new conference setup and the fidget spinner caught fire during the TikTok dance. Right? All of a sudden, you've got a lot of buy-in from the marketing team and most of Gen Z. If you can create a scenario that has these 3 elements, that's one way to turn an exercise from something that's abstract to something that's actionable. Tip number 2 for leveling up your tabletop, gather the right team. When you have a tabletop exercise, who do you invite? As a general rule, you'll want to invite the people who have a role to play or who can contribute something meaningful. Once upon a time, there was a tabletop exercise, and the conductor of the exercise asked a question along the lines of, when such and such hypothetical scenario happens, who is the first person you contact? Well, the tabletop group looked around at each other, and then finally someone said, well, we'll call Steve. Steve, great. Clocked it. So once Steve is aware of the issue, who is responsible for taking care of the next step? Well, that's Steve's job. Steve's job, right? Not Steve Jobs. So once Steve has done the next part, who is responsible? Well, okay, so Steve handles that too. Okay, and remind me, which one of you is Steve? Steve's not here. Ooh, yikes, right? So the moral of this story is stop talking about Steve behind his back. If Steve is your BCP, if Steve is your incident response plan, it would be an excellent idea for Steve to be at your tabletop exercises. So now that we've got Steve, who else should be invited to your tabletop? When we are talking about people inside the business who get invited to a tabletop, that often looks like your IT and cybersecurity people, your risk management people, and your operations people, right? But what if the scenario results in a situation with a volatile employee? Well, you'd probably want to engage HR at that point. What about negative comments on social media? Well, you'd probably need marketing involved. What about if your lending or mortgage records got breached? What if your organization needs to make a very public statement? What if your customer service team is taking calls from angry customers or the media about the incident? You get the idea. Obviously, not everyone at your organization would need to be involved in every scenario. But if you are looking to level up your tabletop exercises and expand your impact, I think it can be important to remember that when a cyber incident or a business disruption happens, it's everyone's problem. So everyone can and probably should be part of the solution. What about people outside the business? Have you ever thought about inviting your board members to participate? So if getting buy-in from management on cybersecurity initiatives is a challenge, it might be helpful for them to see firsthand how the cookies are made, so to speak. Based on the content you cover, you could also document this as a cybersecurity training exercise for your board members. So what about inviting someone from one of your third parties or your managed service provider? What about an insurance breach coach? What about law enforcement? Someone like the FBI or Secret Service, or maybe emergency response. So if you're doing a tabletop exercise over a fire, it might be helpful to have someone from the fire department on hand for questions. One that I would definitely recommend is having a consultant sit in on your tabletop exercise, because not only do they bring a unique perspective, but they can bring other people's perspectives to the tabletop too. There are a lot of people who could have a say in your tabletop exercise, but let's pump the brakes for just a second. These are just ideas. This is not a mandatory guest list. I'm just saying bringing in a few of these folks can really level up your tabletop exercise and turn it into something great. So that begs the question, how many people should I have at my tabletop? Research shows that the most productive meetings or tabletops include 5 to 8 people. So aim for like 6, 7. Any fewer, and you might miss out on key information that you need, and any more, and you might run the risk of participants disengaging. The third tip I want to share with you is schedule strategically. Basically, timing is everything. Schedule your tabletop exercise for 1 to 2 hours max. Any shorter and you're likely to not get into the details enough, but any longer and people might disengage or dread future tabletops because it's a big time commitment. I'm also going to encourage you to check participant calendars. You don't want this to be the meeting that pushes their fullest calendar week of the year over the edge. Be kind with your bookings and be considerate of participant calendars when you are scheduling your tabletops. The fourth tip I have for you is be a great host. Cue the dancing candlesticks in the conservatory. Set the table. So set out some notebooks, set out some writing utensils, and maybe even some refreshments, coffee, candy, healthy snacks, protein packs. You get the idea. Think about your audience and what kind of environment would make them feel welcome and prepare their minds for engagement. In this same thread of being a great host, use friendly words. This is just kindness and basic sociology at work. When you're talking about tabletops, call them a discussion, an exercise, or an activity. Whatever you do, don't call it a tabletop test. Tests are evil. Nobody likes tests. It feels like I'm about to get handed a Scantron and a number 2 pencil. And to be fair, not everybody loves the word exercise either, so choose your words wisely. By framing your tabletop like a discussion, people are more likely to come prepared to discuss and less likely to hide under the conference table. You know that some of the best content comes when something unexpected happens, like Andy Richter making it to the quarterfinals on Dancing with the Stars. Talk about a plot twist, right? You can use plot twists in your tabletop exercises the same way. Some people like to call these scenario modifiers, but I think plot twist is a little more fun. For example, if you say you're going to do a tabletop exercise on a fire at the main location, let's admit it, that sounds kind of boring. But what happens if that's only the beginning? What if the fire occurred in a different place, like in the server room instead of the marketing area? What happens if the fire happened at a different time, like at midnight instead of noon? What happens if a key employee didn't report to the evacuation location? Yikes. Thankfully, they were just on a morning coffee run, but still good to know. What if the fire inspector finds a suspicious device and you are now looking at an arson case? What if a customer shows up and needs access to her safe deposit box to get an important legal document out of it while the kind firemen are currently dousing your building in water? You get the idea, don't be afraid to introduce a little bit of orchestrated chaos into your tabletop exercise. With a little creativity and a tiny bit of magic, your tabletop exercise can be full of style and substance if you use plot twists. On to our final tip of the day for leveling up your tabletop exercises. Expect the unexpected. Basically, aim for the stars, but be ready for things to catch fire in the process. Did you know that space companies sometimes intentionally blow up their own rockets? For engineers, seeing how things fail is incredibly valuable. I'm not saying you should be blowing up rockets every day just to test your business continuity plan, but this idea holds. Studying failures carefully can teach us things that lessons alone never will. So, what does this mean for you? Well, it means that you should expect 4 outcomes from your tabletop exercises. First, expect potential errors and imperfect results. Things will happen that your plans are not prepared for, and that's okay. In fact, that's kind of the point of the whole thing. Find the gaps before they find you. But it's not all doom and gloom. Every error or imperfect result is an opportunity to learn and fix the issues that come up. We need to be tracking our lessons learned and action items so we can make sure the underlying issues get resolved. If you have no lessons learned and no action items for at the end of your tabletop exercise, something is missing. And with that, we have covered my 5 tips for your tabletop. If there's one message I want to leave with you here today, it's this. Tabletop exercises are often seen as just another item on the compliance checklist, but a tabletop exercise can be a huge value add when done well. If you are looking for some help with planning and documenting your tabletop exercises, I would love for you to check out my company's software, Tandem. Our business continuity plan and incident management products feature a variety of scenarios and tools designed to make tabletops easy. If you would like to learn more about how Tandem can help you with those, visit our website at tandem.app. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope this session has been helpful for you. I hope to see you around and that you have a blessed day.